Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Grand Prix. It's the 6th round in the group stages, and after today, we will know either who has qualified to the next stage of the Grand Prix, aka the semifinals, or who has to play a playoff tomorrow. So tomorrow is reserved for a rest day or a playoff or whatever. Well, we're about to jump into the action. And obviously the first game that we got to look at is this game between Andrei Yesipenko and Hikaru Nakamura. There is absolutely nothing more sensational than this. Andrei is half a point behind Hikaru, and he's got to win. And Hikaru beat Andrei already a couple of rounds ago. So super tense thing that's about to unfold here. We have e4, e5, and Andrei does not go into Hikaru's Berlin. I actually had a feeling that this is what was going to happen. He feels that his best winning chances are to play the Italian. We have a regular looking position, and then all of a sudden, Andrei plays a4. That is not what you do in this position. Normally, you play c3 and try to play for d4. You maneuver the knight to g3. You have a very close positional battle. But a couple moves later, after relatively normal moves, he played a5. This is what you do when you need to win a game of chess. And in a very low-risk opening, like an e4, e5 Italian, sometimes the best way to create imbalance is by the smallest of measures, which is a queenside pawn push. You restrict black's queenside play, and potentially this pawn could be an asset in the endgame. I don't know. And by the 10th or 11th move of the game, we have something that's just almost never been reached before. You have all pieces on the board. 16 times 2, 32, there you go. 32 chess pieces on the board, so you have a very cramped situation and opportunity to create play. Andrei plays queen b3, and Hikaru sees himself under pressure over here. Queen e7, knight d2, and here Hikaru plays rook b8. Rook b8 is defending the pawn on b7 and ready to move this bishop out. The problem with rook b8 is that now I can take on a7. And when your knight goes back, you have relinquished some support in the center of the board, and here, there is the possibility for white to take on a6. Now, it's not so clear that this is actually so good, because black can play this move. Point is that you couldn't take, but now you can. And there's some tactics to be calculated. In the game, we actually had an opportunity for that to happen as well. And here, Yesipenko can play d5, push the knight back, and again go for bishop takes a6. Now, what you have to calculate here is this. Bishop takes h3. And bishop takes b7 is a possibility. Bishop to g4. And here white has to go full young elo and play rook a4. Solidifying the center. And on knight d7, you have to sack the rook and play a6. And this is what the computer considers a winning position for white. I don't know. I feel like if Yesipenko plays like that, he should be checked. Drugs, stockfish, something else. Instead, he just plays very, in a very, straightforward fashion. He doesn't take on a6. He just has a massive space advantage in the center and on the queen side. Hikaru rotates his knight and tries to liquidate a little bit of the pressure. The problem is that there is one man, and one man only, who is very slowly improving his position, and it's the Russian guy. If you notice, he's expanded everything. We have our little pokeball here of pawns, and white is just going to go b5. White's going to go b5, rook b1, maybe rook c1 and c5. Like, white's just going to expand on the queen side. So rather than sitting there and dying, Hikaru plays f5 because you got to do something. You got nothing. You got to do something. Now, Yesipenko here can still play for b5, and if fe4, he can play this amazing move, knight back to d2. He's not worried about what's going to happen over here because there's no attack. He can take on e4, he can continue to try to play on that side of the board. Yesipenko thinks for like 18 minutes here and plays bishop d3, lasering this pawn and baiting Hikaru to do this. But the thing is, you have no attack here. This looks like a King's Indian attack, but you have no pieces. In a King's Indian, you have pieces behind your pawns. You can't do anything with black here. So he can't do that. Hikaru plays queen f6, Yesipenko goes takes, we have a trade, knight to d4, right? So you can't do this. And queen goes back to f7, and it looks like Yesipenko is crashing through. It looks like he is just, everything is working for white here. Knight is going to e6. Moves, one move after the other plays itself. In this position, Stockfish finds the incredible knight to b6. Hikaru doesn't see it. Yesipenko obviously doesn't see it either. You don't play this if you see this. Point is that you hit c4, and now your rooks are connected. So if a b6, e d4, and we have just a trade. We're about to, queen d4. If you take on b6, f4 is falling. I mean, it's just a draw. Black can save the game on the spot. Hikaru misses it and plays the move c6, and now the position is plus 2.5 for white. So position is completely winning for Yesipenko. He can take on c6. He can take on e7. Now, both of them lead to forcing variations. It's not so simple. Yesipenko now, it's move 27, so 13 moves to go, 14 moves to go. Takes on e5, Hikaru takes on d5. Now, white has a completely winning move here. Wins on the spot. Not easy to see. It's not takes, it's not push. It's obviously not takes, you hang your queen. It's the move queen g3. Why? Why is it queen g3? You unpin your queen. So, you now can take on e5 with the rook, and the point is that if this trade occurs, it's very hard to guard this rook. In fact, it's almost impossible. For example, if you play rook to a8, rook f1, and what the hell are these pieces doing? Look at this army. This army is coordinated, right? Hashtag BTS, hashtag army. They are going on an attack, right? But no. Queen g3 is not played in the game. The other idea of queen g3 is there's no queen g6. Yesipenko, instead of this, plays e6, which is also, it's the second best move. Very natural move. e6. But now queen g6. That is why queen g3 was so strong, because it pressures everything and restricts black's movement. Hikaru here, after queen g6, must have been anticipating pawn takes d5, at which point he would play knight e7. Now, white still has a connected, protected passed pawn. Queen b3, the game goes on. Yesipenko here goes absolutely nuts. He plays rook f1. And he allows Hikaru to take on c4. But why? Why did he allow that? I don't know. I don't know why he allowed the pawn to take on c4. I mean, sometimes I can't answer the own questions of my games. Pawn takes d5, right? Okay, fine. His idea is just all his pieces are super active. So, okay, for the cost of a pawn, Hikaru must play knight d5 now. Queen back to f2, rook g3 is the idea. Hikaru blunders the game away. Knight c6, losing on the spot. Why? Because knight c6, if you play this move, I have queen e7, a7, and you can't take my knight. You can't take my knight because your rook is hanging. So if he takes back, now the pawn gets to e7, and this is game over. Yesipenko, it's +7. It's astronomically high advantage. Why? Why is the advantage so high? What is white threatening? White is threatening nothing. That's the beauty. I mean, okay, here white is threatening rook g3. But when black defends, white cannot rush with rook f8 because black actually has the defense in place to stop promotion. All white has to do is play queen c4. Just take the pawn. For example, if the move d5 occurs, you just come back. And slowly but surely, you win. You're going to win this endgame. Slowly but surely. Queen e5, maybe rook g3, hide your king from back rank checks. Slowly but surely. Yesipenko rushes. He repeats moves, and rather than taking on c4, he plays rook f8 and allows Hikaru to whoop, cocoon defense. Takes. The players have now made it to move 40. Yesipenko spends 18 minutes, and in this position, he can take on a6 and send the game into a queen endgame. Or he can play the absolutely shocking move queen e6. Queen e6 paralyzes the board for black. Black has two choices. Get into a rook endgame with king f7 and try to hold this rook endgame. Or black can play c5 and lose in spectacular fashion to a move that Stockfish does not even see. b5! ab5, a6! b4, and if you bring the rook back, you're constantly threatening a promotion. So for example, a7, b3, and here you have rook d6. b2, rook b6, something like this, and both pawns cannot be stopped by the rook. And it's even more incredible that if black plays something like king f7, you just come back to e2. And you have to go to e2, you cannot go to e1. This is the incredible thing. You have to go to e2 and not e1. It's just, I can't even begin to sit here and pretend like I understand the difference. Queen e6 is the Stockfish winning move here. But Yesipenko goes for the human alternative. He plays into the queen endgame and has to give a check. The check before he takes the pawn apparently is better, but he takes the pawn first, and Hikaru gets to a queen on 3, queen on 3. It's still not the easiest thing in the world. White does have this a-pawn. But black finds the best defense. Hikaru gets the queen back and uses his d-pawn as a decoy for the white position. He pushes the pawn. up to d4, and now white has no way of dealing with how active the queen is going to be on the king, and how active this pawn will be to sacrifice itself so the queen can take over here. And Hikaru finds this defensive regrouping, queen d8, and it's over. It is all over. Hikaru survives, makes the draw, quick moment with 4 queens on the board, and he moves on in the group stage. Wow. Wow. What a game. I mean, you couldn't have written it up. Yasipenko must have just melted down a little bit. He had his opportunities. And the 2 moments of the game where he potentially had his biggest advantage, he spent the most amount of time that he had in the entire game on move 41 and some moves earlier. And credit to Hikaru. I mean, just credit to Hikaru, never giving up. Absolutely never giving up. And he has qualified to the semifinals. Now, next game I'd like to show you is also from Group A. We're going to go group by group. This was a very fun game. Not all these games have implications on who wins the group, because we already know what happened, but this one was a classical Sicilian, Long Castle's classical Sicilian. This one's going to be a very big battle. And for the games that don't have an implication on the playoffs, it's okay. We're still going to, we're going to go through them a little quickly, but no problem. So, folks, here is the makings of the pure Sicilian battle. White is long castled, king is tucked away on b1, white is going to go g4, blah, 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 blah. What is black going to do? Black is going to say, I'm not going to castle. In the classical Sicilian, black oftentimes will leave the king directly in the center of the board. As long as the queen protects this, as long as the knight is protecting over here, for, something like g6, the position is more or less survivable for black. Survivable. Queen c5. Bacro goes for a queen trade, no queen trade, and look at that. I mean, bishop c4, my god, what a savage move. The idea is queen takes d6 and rook d4, and the queen is trapped. I mean, Jesus Christ, Sasha Grischuk, can you please leave Bacro alone? Bishop b3, f4, and the intention, rook g5, f5, right? You have very, very bad intentions here. All sorts of attacking possibilities. Rook g5 is played. Rook goes to e1, and now Grischuk unfolds knight to d5. Oh, if you take, it's ed, and it's check, and the bishop is hit, right? So we get that, queen d4. One of these 2 pieces is better than the other. The bishop on b3 is like staring at f7. It's got the sniper ready, right? Got the shooters on the mountains. We have rook back, takes, d5, and Bacro actually was brave enough to take this pawn. Actually, for a moment, Bacro can say, I'm a pawn up. I'm a pawn up, f5. For a moment, he can say, I'm 2 pawns up. But queen f4, and the attack just never really goes away. I mean, Grischuk continues to chop away at the position. He only has 3 pieces on the board, but if you're going to compare whose king is weaker, yeah, I think there's a clear winner. I think the king on a2 is feeling a little bit more sheltered, and Grischuk continues to poke, doesn't trade queens, don't ever trade queens when you're trying to win a game, and gets that pawn back. He is now no longer down any pawns. And for the majority of this game, which was about 40 moves, it was Grischuk hunting his opponent across the board. I mean, the evaluation hung around like plus 1.5, plus 2 for a very, very, very long time. As you can see, that's sort of what's occurring. The black king has now completely ran to this side of the board. Will Grischuk find a way to finally trick his opponent, maybe outcalculate his opponent? Believe it or not, even this late in the game, it's 0-0-0. I can hardly say it's more comfortable for black, ever. Grischuk will potentially try to find some way to win, try to find some consolidation, and he does. It takes 70 moves. It takes 70 moves. On the 70th move of the game, 69th move, actually, Bacro plays queen c5, allows this backwards queen move to hit the rook and threaten an infiltration. Yeah, I mean, look at this. This is what it takes to win the game. Point is that the queen cannot protect b5 and h4. Grischuk gets the queen to d2, and now queen f4 is played, but you cannot prevent the infiltration. I mean, Bacro resigned here. He chose not to even play this on, which is just, what to say. Grischuk in 2nd place in Group A, I believe, and either tied with Yasipenko or completely on his own. And that's Group A. Group A is now done. I'm going to take you to Group B because Hikaru will play the winner of Group B. Now, this is a big matchup. Aparin versus Vaitashek. Vaitashek playing for a win with black. I mean, if he wins, he just wins the group. Unless, he's also waiting for the save, of course. So this game, folks, was just absolutely nuts. So knight takes d4 is a free pawn in the opening. Wojtaszek sacrifices a pawn for just monster activity. So he's basically like, yo, I don't know how you're ever going to develop your pieces. Really, I have no idea because I'm going to play knight d3. For example, if you play bishop e2, I'm going to go like rook ac8. If you castle, h2 is hanging. So I don't know where you're going. And for a very long time, Biden just had nothing. I mean, he just, like, he couldn't develop at all. I mean, black just was swarming him. Look at this position. Just don't hang your queen. Again, if you castle here with white, queen h... Oh, wrong piece. Queen h4 hits this and this. f4, bishop f4. g3, I might even sack. I mean, and then queen d4. Like, what are we doing here? What is this position? White can't castle. Rook e4 by Wojtaszek. Bishop to a1, f5 by Wojtaszek. Wojtaszek completely winning. Queen b3, and in this position, Wojtaszek just has to play f4. Just to continue the prophecy. Instead, he hesitates, and this allows Biden to play a vicious counterattack. Rook c6. Don't take the bait. Don't take the bait and allow me some counterplay. Don't do it. You have to play f4. If rook takes d6, you just take, and then you sack. You have a mate. Don't panic. Don't panic. Bishop g4 is mate as well on the next move. Don't panic. But Wojtaszek says, what are you doing? That's a rook. But the problem is that now white can consolidate, and white trades queens, and Biden, with his protected c-pawn, is able to safeguard his king. Now his king can stand confidently in the center of the board. So from a dead loss position, he bluffs completely, and Wojtaszek calls the bluff. But the problem is that now Biden actually, believe it or not, from the depths of hell, is playing for a win. White is better. White has connected past pawns. And here, the players agree to a draw. They repeat moves. Biden could have played rook d3 and maybe even played on. He honestly can play this position for a win. He chooses to repeat moves with Wojtaszek and make a draw. So now Wojtaszek is sitting and watching two other guys play. He is awaiting the winner of the other game, or the draw, let's say, in the other game, which is the game between FIDE and Report. Now, FIDE in this game goes for a London. He chooses, because he's with white, he is half a point ahead. All he needs is a draw. And he probably understands that Report is going to get wild with it, right? He's going to do some wild stuff here. So he's like, I'm going to be ultra solid. Now, folks, this strategy is really perfect against Report, because if you just look in the first like 10 moves of this game, both sides castle. How the hell is black going to ever do anything here? Black has a completely symmetrical structure to white. C-pawns are off the board. It's literally 0-0-0. I mean, Fedoseev is just waiting. Oh, there it is. Report is going for some play. Now we fly over to the file. We trade a pair of rooks. I mean, white is just better, folks. Like, white controls the C file. It's a position of complete symmetry. White is just better. Fedoseev got everything he wanted, right? Rook c1, rook d8. Now, at some point, something's got to give. f5, right? I mean, Report's really trying. Bishop, what the hell is bishop e2? Bishop e2 apparently loses the game on the spot to the move e4. Bishop e2 was like +2 for white. e4. Fedoseev has to flip his switch from, I don't care about playing actively, I'm gonna let my opponent self-destruct. Here's your moment! e4, fe, knight e4. Apparently this just leads to a massive attack on the black king. But he doesn't play it. He doesn't play it and allows Report to finish his operation of transferring the bishop. And that, for a very long time, was the only chance that Fedoseev had. And the thing is that even in a position with complete symmetry, if you play too hesitant for too long, what's gonna happen? You're gonna mess up. So, for a while, nothing was going on. Literally, there was a threat of repetition, right? Now, obviously, Report can't do it. Report's gotta win the game. Otherwise, he can't qualify. Takes. Position's still completely symmetrical. Completely symmetrical. The only thing is that black can get to c3 with the knight, and that's kind of an inconvenience, right? Look at Report. Calculated risk taking here. h5. No queen trade. Doesn't want a queen trade. Fedoseev, though, I mean, his position's looking very nice. But now queen a8. Wait a minute. I thought we just said we didn't want a queen trade. At the right moment, we do. Because the truth is, black has all the play. Black is playing for a4, black is playing for the c file, and black is playing for the weakness on a2. all of a sudden, Fedoseev on move 45 is to look himself in the mirror and go, what have I done? I played too passively for too long, because now, white has the weakness. Now, a5 is a target, but go ahead and take it. Go ahead and take my pawn on a5. Because what happens rook c7? Your knight is trapped. I control the c-file. Your knight is in a box. I can even walk my king and win it with my bare hands. My king will kill your horse. All right? My king is a savage. Knight to e5, rook c3. Oh my god. An absolute nightmare is coming true. Oh my goodness. The endgame is completely lost by virtue of the pawn sacrifice to damage white's pawn structure. The king now infiltrates because this knight is so active compared to this one. This is completely insane. Fedoseev tied for first. Tied for first place at the time of the game beginning, played too passively and allowed Rapport to slowly squeeze the juice out of the lemon. Oh my goodness. And Rapport is going to win this game. Rapport wins on move 72. 2 queening pawns. Fedoseev is knocked out. The playoff is Wojtaszek versus Rapport. 3.5 points out of 6 they both finished with. Oh my god. I can't believe that happened. I absolutely can't believe what happened. And now Hikaru gets a rest day and awaits the winner between Wojtaszek and Rapport. Wow. That was not supposed to happen. Credit to Rapport for keeping that patience. Now let's move to Group C. The first game in Group C, Aranyan's the winner of Group C. So we have a Najdorf, and Aranyan goes for a sideline. He doesn't choose to play aggressively, like here white can play g4. But Aranyan goes for a forced draw variation. He forces a draw. Like, this position has been reached, 500 times, and white targets the pawn, black defends, white targets the a6 pawn, black defends, and we repeat moves. Now, the funny thing in this position is that in this position, because black has the right to castle, it's considered a separate position than this one. This is not the same position. This is not the same position that we just had because black doesn't have the right to castle. So technically, the players have to repeat moves 4 times. I think they did that in the game because they have to repeat the drawn position 3 times. It's kind of funny. Kind of funny. Anyway, Aranyan wins Group C. Not much to say about this game, but let's look at the game between Vidit and Keimer. Vidit is not playing for a qualification spot, but he's playing to, well, frankly, bully his opponent, because his opponent is not having a very good group stage. 2 draws, 3 losses. So now we have a position from the World Championship. Magnus played this against Jan. Not this, but Keimer obviously taking a page out of the Magnus playbook. Now, bishop c5, and we have the following situation, where white is going to try to expand here and here. That's white's game plan. Okay, so there's the center expansion. So now that the knight has moved here, I don't think we're going to get this expansion. We have this. Maybe h3. We're going to bring some coordination of queens and rooks. Let's watch it unfold. Okay. Okay. Oh, knight e5. Okay, so Vidit decides to trade the light squared bishops. So we have no bishops. Vidit chooses to battle with queens, rooks, and knights. Queen d3, rook d1. Okay, everything that I said came true. White expanded in the middle. White put the queen in the rook. But now what? How is Vidit going to win this game? Is he... Okay, okay. Knight g6. Oh! Vidit wants to expand everywhere. It's a low-risk position. He can just take as much space as possible. Black goes back to e7. White expands again. Black plays the move a6. Very provocative move. If you take my pawn, black's idea is, I guess, queen a7. Now, this either completely holds for black or loses immediately, because in general in chess, when you lose time like this and you don't win material back immediately, I don't know. Knight a4, queen, knight b6. You take c5. Oopsies. So there are tactics here for Vidit, but Vidit chooses just to keep the position symmetrical and apply pressure on this pawn. And he has a great position. He continues expanding on the king side. He continues expanding on the king side. It's basically like Keimer standing there like, holy crap, Vidit's coming and he's really mad. And Vidit's like, I'm just going to keep pushing forward. I have absolutely 0 risk. The problem is, in any good position, you need to win the game. As we just saw in Yesipenko, right? You need to win the game. Vidit, so far, is playing perfectly. Playing a perfect game. Queen c7, repeats once, plays rook a1. Again, best move, rook a7. Like, literally, I think up until this point, Vidit's playing 99% game. Just 99%. Every move, continuously applying pressure. Keimer plays knight f6, right? Rook e5. Maybe not necessary to go rook e5. It's obviously not a bad move. Rook a7 you can continue with. But in the game, you know, he decides to go with the knight and trades queens and comes back. And I guess Vidit is like, I have 2, he has 1. So in the future, if I ever get to play the move c5, I get a pass pawn and I win. Right? And again, Vidit has no risks. Everything defends everything in his position. He opts for d5 and tries to trade off a pair of rooks for a pass pawn. Now, Keimer is not so kind to his opponent. He really doesn't want his opponent to have an easy life. And instead is defending his b-pawn and counteracting the c-pawn. Now, Vidit here has made a bit of an inaccuracy because he has a 1-on-1. Vidit wanted a 1-on-0. He's going to struggle to get it. So what is he going to do? Well, he's going to try to move his pawn forward on the king side. All right, and now he's going to try to create this pass pawn. Okay, there we go, Vidit. He's now made his 1-on-0. The problem is he also gave black a 1-on-0. Well, now he has to win the game. King e4, king e5, maybe. All right, so Vidit plays knight f4. Now he puts his knight on, didn't like that, goes for king e4. But how do you win? I mean, you can repeat moves all you want, but how do you actually win this position? It's like a complete cluster, unclear cluster of pieces. Knight to b4, rook c8. And Vidit messed up. He messed up because he got his rook trapped. He got it trapped in the sense that he probably has to trade. Because if he takes on b6, now knight c4, and there's just too much activity here. Now it's actually black who's going to create some counterplay. So Keimer does a very good job in this game of surviving for an extremely long time. The players end up repeating moves because even though Vidit got his opportunity, he wasn't actually able to capitalize on it. So, nice game by Keimer. I mean, like, must have sucked playing it, but good defense by him. I mean, he survives an extremely unpleasant position. Yeah, Ranyan wins Group C. I think Vidit got second place. Maybe tied with Dubov. So, the last group that I have to show you, Wesley So is half a point ahead of Lenier Dominguez. Wesley So is playing with white against Hare Krishna. He goes for a Catalan. Not shocking, right? So it's a winner-draw opening. If Wesley wins, he wins the group. If he draws and Leiner wins, then they have a playoff. So this game had many trades early. We had a trade of knights, we had a trade of bishops, and Wesley got the following position from the opening, where he has a slightly better structure on the queen side, but black is very active, and black is going to go c4 and try to harass white. So Wesley goes here and here, and black plays c4. Doesn't it make sense that black is playing c4? I mean, look at the position. Everything in black's position says, I'm going to play on the queen side. You can't change that. Now, Wesley can play knight takes c6, of course, and bishop h3 attacking this pawn. But what happens when black defends the pawn? Anybody have any ideas? Like, what now? Like, with white, for example, let's just say, you can lose. You can get a losing position because you accidentally allowed the c3 pawn to come forward. So you have to actually be a little bit careful here. Hare Krishna shows really good preparation here and completely, just absolutely neutralizes the white initiative. Now we have takes bishop f1, rook c3, and this is perhaps the best moment of the game for Wesley, right around here. He has to find a way to coordinate the army to get in and target these pawns successfully in the long run, because black does have the worst structure. His pawns are split. Queen c1, e5, rook c6, queen d8, this is the biggest advantage that Wesley had of the entire game. Queen c3, he did a very nice job here, targets the middle. Hare Krishna plays e4, now Wesley's gotta figure out what he's gonna do. All right, how does Wesley make progress? Seems like everything's going right, Seems like everything's going right for Wesley. But what's next? He plays a4. What he should do is play here and here, and let's just, I guess you can give black this move as well. Bishop e6, king h8, rook c7, and queen e5. And Wesley basically has to not worry about the queen side at all. Queen e5, after queen e5, rook to a7, maybe queen g5, just go for the king. Create problems here and go for the king. Wesley goes a4 and bishop b5, and Hare Krishna creates some active counterplay. Wesley takes on a5 and is now just being swarmed. and has to actually bail out and force a draw. So a really strange turn of events. Like right around here after e4 by black, after bishop h3, Stockfish is claiming +2. I mean, it's claiming the game is over. Just completely over. It just thinks that like black has no counterplay at all. And Wesley just went the wrong way. I mean, he had to go right. He went left. He put the bishop on the other side of the board, and I guess his intention was to take and promote the a-pawn, and Hare Krishna just swarmed in very actively, and, you know, instead of queen c2, Wesley decided to take on a5, and if you're confused why the final position is a draw, it's because the black king cannot escape check. So king f8, check, here, check, here, check, here, check. Like, you're never escaping. So, draw agreed. Which means Lanier, who is the final game of today's recap, must beat Alexei Shirov. And let me tell you something. You think we're going to have a boring game, but on move 6, Alexei plays g5. Now you know someone's going to lose. Alexei is trying to play the role of spoiler. He is not trying to play the Berlin defense. He's like, yo, Lanier, I am playing for a win, which means I'm also playing potentially for a loss. Do your worst. All right? Knight d2, bishop g7, g4, h5. I mean, what the heck is this? What the heck is this? It's crazy you can play like this in the modern era. Lanier plays f4, takes, d5. Now, the move d5 apparently is dead loss for black. I mean, not according to me. According to our computer overlords. After pawn takes, knight takes, and bringing the rook back to f2. Like here, Stockfish was trying to say, go home. Just go home. You can't play like this. +2. Plus 1.5. I don't exactly know how, because if, let's sample variation. g3, hg, h4. If you take and allow queen h4, you're getting mated, right? So, you have to be ready for the black assault here. And Lanier chooses to play rook f1. Bishop e6 and just build a strong center. So he's interested more in kind of the positional elements of the game like this, rather than the tactical elements. The problem is, black is fine. Black gets the castle long, gets the king out of the middle. The issue here for black more than anything is being bored to death. So for example, takes, rook e8, Lanier plays queen f5. Again, he can choose to keep queens on, and maybe play for queen c4, maybe try to create an attack on the queen side, but he just plays queen f5, and just positionally speaking, black has to play here, because there's no other convenient way to protect this pawn. For example, let's say black plays rook e7, bishop f4, black is like, no moves. I mean, black simply has no moves. Before b5, I mean, I'm just going to kill you. Like, you have nothing. These pawns don't scare anybody anymore. They're not a threat whatsoever. So, you actually, this is the best move, as ugly as it is, but this is the perfect thing to do if you're trying to play against Shirov. Like, Shirov is constantly looking for activity. So, rook e2, rook b2, and Lanier's like, yo, how are you gonna be putting all your pieces just God knows where? It's like a family that moved 10,000 miles apart and doesn't even call each other. What are you gonna do here? What is your game plan? Okay, you won my b2 pawn, but what is your game plan? Knight d5. Okay, you can, okay, rook e1, okay, takes. Okay, you got your rook here, great. Okay, do you have a threat? He's not saying all this to Shirov. Shirov's a big guy, punch him in the face. Don't trash talk during the games, especially against big opponents. You gotta choose your opponents wisely, like Sean O'Malley. All right, rook h3, bishop g3, and now what? Shirov, again, a5, trying to lash out. Takes, and Lanier's like, dude, knight trade. Takes, and hi, who's accounting for you? Check. You either have to go king here, after which check, and I win a second pawn and I mate you, or you have to go here, rook e7, hits you like this, and Lanier wins. He wins, which means that he ties with Wesley, which means that tomorrow there are 2 tie breaks. There are 2 tie breaks. Wesley So versus Lanier Dominguez, and the Group B between Wojtaszek and Rapport. Hikaru qualifies, Levon qualifies, but they are awaiting who is going to be in their group. And wow, what a day! What a day! I was watching the live chat. One thing I can tell you, if you guys think that some YouTube comments are bad, live chat for chess games is the worst. It really is. I mean, people just screaming blunder, idiot this, idiot that. Oh my goodness. It is some wild stuff. Today was great. And tomorrow's a rest day for some of the players, folks. Appreciate your support as always through these recaps. Tomorrow we have a tiebreak, and then we begin the semifinals.